and welcome to Mirador Television. We are the biggest little TV in the world, based in Lewes, East Sussex in England. Our aim is to entertain and to spice things up a little. We will also keep an eye on the local politics, because let's face it, someone has to. Our programs range from stories about the local people to stories about people from all the way across the pond. Brought to you by our wonderful colleagues in New York. So why not sit back, relax with your favourite cuppa, or maybe your favourite tipple, and enjoy. This is Mirador Television.
Hello. Well, an interesting day, but let's just remind people who we are. Well, good morning. And let's start off the day with a joyous note. And this will be a truncated version of Mirador's Break an Egg because it is election day. We will have a little bit to say about the election, but we can't talk politics. And since this early morning program, 90% of the time, is about politics of one sort or another, then it tends to zip our mouths. But the first political story, which is a happy story, is that Stephen Catlin, who is our political correspondent, was last night elected mayor of Lewes. It was anticipated that he would be, and now it is fact. And we want to give and pay all due respect to Stephen, who is a hard-working councillor, if they are councillors at the town level, and sees his reward as being for the next year, for the next 12 months, the mayor of Lewes. And I know that he has some plans and projects that he wants to institute, as indeed did the last mayor, John Lamb. And let us pay due respect to John Lamb, who was an active mayor and did a number of things, particularly when it came to COVID. We couldn't always get him on, but we did actually put him in touch with the mayor of Lewes in Delaware, and we had quite a good talk before everything started to go downhill because of COVID, the latest lockdown, which took place really in last December and really started a very, very tough road to hoe for us. But John Lamb, well done, and thank you for your service to the town. Stephen Catlin, thank you for your service over the years, because you've been a district councillor and a town councillor. And now I think we shouldn't say, I suppose, a reward, but it is good to see a man of experience and who is fearless in what he has to say about governance, is now the titular head anyway, ceremonial head of Lewis. And while, as he points out, there's very little power that attaches to the town council, nonetheless, the mayor is able to start initiatives. And I know that Stephen has got a number up his sleeve, and we'll leave him to tell you about that when he comes back onto Mirador. And we see less of him on Mirador, unfortunately, because the role of mayor does take up a lot of time. In fact, I was just talking to him and said, why don't you come on this morning and tell people yourself about you becoming mayor? And he said, I've got enough meetings now. Next Wednesday is the first time that I can pop my head above the parapet. So there you are. It is not all robes and cocked hats. And if I may say so, one of the things that attracts tourists to the UK is our robes, our medallions, and our cocked hats. They love the ceremony. And those people who sit on the various town councils here and various councils at all levels and say, oh, let's do away with all this stuff, is they are robbing us of income, of revenue. So think about that before you go on your political. Oh, I'm not allowed to say things like that today because it's election day. And that would make really the electoral rules, which say you must not say things or report things or do things that will sway the voter. So I'm not going to. And it's a pity because there are a number of things, of issues that have come to my attention and of which I've been part, which need outlining and reporting and explaining to the electorate who, with all due respect, looking you in the eye, for as many of you are looking at me, don't really give a fig what's happening in your community until actually it affects you. There is a lady who is this morning in Lewis Present, which is run by a good pal, Mick Symes, and she is pointing out all the deficiencies of the great, I can't even remember what the hell they call it, but the merger of all the surgeries, medical practices in Lewis into one great big amorphous mass. And as she's pointing out, is you can't get through. There's a website that takes hours to actually go through if you're not computer savvy. If you do get through, you then get into a queue. She said that she was in the queue. She was 20th in the queue, and that it would be 40 minutes before she got an answer. I was 20th in the queue as well, and 40 minutes before I got an answer. Well, what I did, and I was able, is I just went out through the front door. I went down to the surgery. I said, I'm here to make an appointment. And I went in, and there was nobody there except the two lovely ladies behind the desk. And I got my business done. I had blood taken. I had all sorts of things within seconds. But the new system for firmament, or whatever the hell they call this thing now, it is rubbish and it's nonsense. And I had a long chat with a very senior doctor here not too long ago. And as he said, he doesn't support this sort of thing because now everything is done on a computer. Oh, yeah, okay. My doctor, who is supposed to be my dedicated doctor, wasn't available for 4 weeks under this new system. 4 weeks, and that's my dedicated doctor. I'm dying now. Rubbish, absolute rubbish. And the fact of the matter is that what they do is they have a computer screen so they can look and they can not know you at all, and they can say, oh, well, yes, I see that you did this here and I see that there. And as this doctor pointed out, that's not what healing is about. That's not what medicine is about. What medicine is about is you look after people for a time, and the statistics don't show you some of the things about that person that you are able to pick up because you know them. I haven't seen my proper doctor, if you like, for a year or more. So what's the point of having the system? Well, that system has been rubbed out by this greater, bigger is better. And globalization has failed in the world. It hasn't worked. So what do? We are really the silliest people in Britain. I was privileged to interview the late Indira Gandhi when she was president of India. This would have been, I suppose, in the 1970s, early 1970s, before she was assassinated. And what a woman she was. I understood after being in the room with her for all of 30 seconds what charisma meant. How there is an aura, indescribable aura about somebody when you're in their presence. And it's almost overpowering. And I asked her about the Indian educational system. And I said, I've been to India, and one of the things that happens is that you pull into a petrol station, and somebody with a PhD comes and sponges the front window. And I said, how have you got to that? And she said, we made a huge mistake. We tried to give everybody a degree, thinking that would up their level of not only understanding, but ability to make their way in the world. And she said, Mr. Hayes, and she looked at me intensely, if there is a message I would give to the people of the United Kingdom, it's don't follow what we've done. It doesn't work. Ha ha! Well, Tony Blair wasn't in charge in those days. So in 97, what did he do? Exactly what the Indians had found to be a failure. Everybody now can get a degree. If you don't have a degree, the coppers are all supposed to have degrees, for God's sake. We've gone degree mad, and it's ridiculous because what's happened is we follow the rest of the world in all the things that have gone wrong. So why am I talking about education when we're really talking about medicine? Because once again, what have we done? We've gone bigger is better when we know very well it's not. Everything tells us bigger isn't necessarily better. Yes, bigger is needed sometimes. Sometimes it is, but not as a universal panacea. And that's what's happened. Everybody wants to go bigger, bigger medical practices. Oh, Jason Heath is going to slaughter me for this. But I'm sorry, is this system does not allow the doctors under it to get to know their patients. And that's how 90% of things are cured or prevented or treated, because the patient doctor relationship is there, and it's not anymore. It's not, and it's sad and it's tragic to see. But voice in the wilderness. This poor lady found exactly what I found, is getting in touch through their system is not only confusing, but once you're there, you just have to wait for forever, and it's crazy. It is crazy. And I'm sorry if they don't dissemble it soon. Well, I'm getting towards the end of my life, but I hope that somebody somewhere, have somebody in their 30s, will take up the flag and take a very, very close look at this system, which is now in favour. I can't remember exactly what the argument for it is. I think it's that if you've got a big surgery like that, then you can afford to buy your own medical equipment, as opposed to sending them up to, say, Victoria Hospital or into Brighton. That's okay. If the sacrifice that has to be made is in the interest of the people, and it's not. So that's non-political. And Stephen Catlin, what else can I talk about except the election? Huh. Well, first of all, we're going to war with France by the look of things. We do every couple of centuries. We do. So this time it's over Jersey. It makes me laugh, the level of politician that we've got, and for that matter, the level of civil servant that we've got in the world today. They're a joke. They're a laugh. They are not a bit interested in the people they represent, only in a certain point of view. And in this particular case, Jersey, and I didn't know this until I read about it today, is served by electricity from France. But it's also a part of the United Kingdom, and as a consequence, wants to protect its fisheries. So it's put into place what the EU protocol is with us in Brexit. And the first thing that the French have done is got upset about it and said, we'll cut off your electricity. So now that the French fishermen and the French workers are always rabid. They're always, if they can find a reason to become violent, they will. And this is a good one. So the French fishermen are descending on Jersey to make their displeasure known. Oh, yeah. Well, you're only bloody fishermen and you're French, right? And we're only bloody English and we're this, that, and the other. If we could all put ourselves into perspective as to what we are instead of high and mighty, hoity-toity, and by God, I'm going to make my fellow citizens suffer, is we might all get along better together. But what are we going to do? Of course we are. We're going to send in the Navy because now we've got to protect those people in Jersey. And I hope that a few shells are lobbed. Nobody hurt. But at least it'd be like the mouse that roared, the Duchy of Grand Fenwick. For those of you who don't know that book or that film, the Duchy of Grand Fenwick decides to invade the United States so that it can get the Marshall Plan when it's defeated. And on the way across in that old tramp steamer, a liner reports that a tramp steamer goes past them and they are assaulted with bows and arrows. The funny part is when the Duchy of Grand Fenwick, a little army gets to New York, it wins. And suddenly it's invaded the United States and it's victorious. It's a hilarious story. Anyway, is the fact is what we could do is we could have a little Duchy of Grand Fenwick war down in Jersey, and instead of us lobbing things that go bang in the night, we could do it with bows and arrows. That'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? It's to the French fishermen and the English Navy circling one another with bows and arrows. No crossbows; they're too deadly and accurate. It would be marvelous. It won't happen. Don't worry. I'm just rambling this morning because I can't talk about the things that I want to because it's election day. And what does election day mean? Well, it's the biggest set of elections outside a general election in nearly 50 years. And we can cast ballots about the following issues. In Scotland and Wales, the electorate will decide on their national governments. And that's the fight with Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond, and now a Tory who is not at all feisty. And that, of course, can then possibly trigger the whole idea of Scottish independence again. Not sure in Wales what the issues are, but nowhere near as serious as that one. There are 143 different councils, where elections are today. And in Hartlepool, there is a by-election. Now, that will give some measure. The polls are saying that the Tories are going to win it. And the fact of the matter is that it's been a Labour heartland for God knows how long. So if the Tories win that, it will give some idea instead of the headlines about who paid for the flat, who paid for the apartment that Boris is in number 10. It will give some idea of the real meat of the election and how people really do feel about the government and about the opposition and so on and so forth. Can't speculate. That would be influencing a vote. But that is the issue in Hartlepool. It's a national issue. So that's one worth watching throughout the day. 13 mayoral elections. Now, those are elections. And there's another key one for the London mayor, where the mayor there, Khan, has been under considerable pressure recently. Has got himself into a bit of a tizzy, but London has changed its nature. It's an amorphous mass of different nations, different ethnicities, different ideas, different values. And so who knows what's going to happen there? Some people think that Khan is a good mayor. Other people think that he's a bad influence. So it will be interesting to see what will happen there. So key elections in Scotland, probably in Wales, although not quite as spectacular as the one in Scotland, in Hartlepool, and in London. and then around the country, including the East Sussex County Council. Now, be quite clear, when you go to the polls, who you're voting for. You're voting for representatives on the county council. That's that dreadful building that should have been blown up years ago, down towards just past the bottleneck, just near to St Anne's Church. It's a dreadful building, and it won some architects' awards. Would you believe? But perhaps a new county council will actually blow it up as a first act of coming into power. But I have no idea what the makeup is. I have no idea what the trends were. I haven't followed that election very, very closely because, for me, the bread and butter issues are always with Lewes District Council, and I've got several of those, but I can't actually espouse them today. I can't bring them into debate simply because if I do, I would be probably not that our influence is going to be that great, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. Electoral law says don't do it, so we're not going to do it. That really is the day. It's an election day, and there are things for you to keep an eye on, and eventually. We will find that there are some indicators out of these elections as to what the country is thinking, which direction the country is likely to go in, and what's going to happen in our own backyard. And for that matter, is the Union safe? Is it going to be the United Kingdom for much longer? I'm not going to debate the issue, that would be wrong. But that is one of the issues that is facing the Scottish electorate. So there you are. It's a big day politically. I'm quite sure that a lot of people will say, "Oh gosh, is that important?" And I picked up a bit of a cold. No, I'm a bit surprised with what I've been through the last few days. Anyway, that's where we stand. That's what will come into focus when we switch on our late evening news and all the polls, all the countings are in. I'm not quite sure how long it takes each individual council to report, but I would imagine that some indications will start coming in around 8 o'clock tonight. So sit back with your gin and tonic, turn on the telly, and watch what's happening in the country as far as the electorate are concerned. How do we feel? Where do we want the country to go? All that sort of thing, if you like. So I'm going to try and take us up to 8 o'clock, just because it's a nice, neat time to round things up. Let's have a look at other news, as it were. Right, the Navy sends vessels to Jersey, a most post-Brexit fishing row with France. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, right. I make fun of these things sometimes because it is tin pot stuff. When you consider that some people and the G7 meeting, which I suppose it must have been G8 because Russia was there. I'm never sure between G7 and G8, but anyway, they're the most important nations, the seven most important nations on the face of the earth. And they all gave fair warning to Russia and to China, and I think it was to Iran, saying, watch your P's and Q's. You're all shouting at one another and lining up, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that, but the spin-off of these things affect us. So there are some concerns, and I don't think that they are war concerns. I mean, whatever you say about Trump, he seemed to shut up the North Korean dictator, didn't he? We haven't heard from him in quite some time, and he hasn't let off any of his fireworks. Can you imagine? We can't have bonfire in this town because of COVID, and here's the leader of North Korea who can't let off his own fireworks, his own rockets because of COVID. Oh dear. No, that does tickle me. I do think that's very funny. The the Financial Times says the US backs a plan to suspend COVID vaccine patents during the pandemic. In other words, if you want to come up with another vaccine, they're going to say no. You know, who the hell is saying no? I'm getting increasingly upset with the fact we're living in a society where somebody decides they don't like what you're doing and they tell you no, and everyone says, "Oh, okay." The whole ethos of Britain that made it so great. Yes, and it was great. Was that we actually stuck our finger up to the rest of the world, and we stuck our fingers up to one another. The House of Commons was a place that was teeming with dissent. In fact, perhaps you know or you don't know, but woven into the carpet in the House of Commons, around the edge of the chamber, is into the rug is a sword line, and that line means that if you sit on the opposition benches and you sit on the government benches, is if you don't cross that line, and you're not allowed to cross that line, you are 2 sword lengths away from the opposition. So you can't pull your sword and have do, right? Well, there's nothing to stop apparently, because I remember doing a little program on some of the things that you can and you can't do. There's nothing to stop you carrying a sword still into the House of Commons. I don't know that anybody does it, but that sword line is there. That if you do, you still can't reach the opposition and stab you. So it was a feisty place in the past. Not very feisty at the moment because it's being told what to do, and basically it's. I mean, one of the funniest things I ever saw was Lewis District Council about, well, it would have been 2 years ago now, I suppose, because it was the end of the old council and the beginning of the new one. But I went down to watch the last council meeting, and it was the Conservatives who were in charge then. And when, in fact, they said all in agreement, is the hands went up like that, as if a string had tugged. Okay, let go. It was hilarious. And actually, the opposition were just the same because they were all against it. Talking about an automaton. And anyway, it doesn't make any difference because it's the computers, along with the quote cabinet, that make all the decisions. And oh no, I can't say anything today. I can't. I must not be critical. And anyway, I've only got 2 minutes left by my own. Well, I can't say that either. There's well, the COVID cases in India have accounted for nearly half of the worldwide coronavirus infections last week. It's just gone. It's run wild in India. They let their guard down after apparently their prime minister is a bit of a blowhard and is always boasting about things he's done and he hasn't done. And he boasted how they got it contained. I don't think we've heard from him now that it's not contained. It's bloody silly. But it is bloody silly in as much as it is bloody, because they've had thousands and thousands of deaths there. And the infection is running rampant. And already, then we have got to look for the India strain, because if that gets a hold here, then we've got a whole new fight. And God forbid that we should have to go back into lockdown. I've never come across anything so devastating for normal way of life, for business, as lockdown. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I did rather well. I actually managed to get make some money because I was paid furlough and I was then able to work here and do that and so on and so forth." Well, okay. But all that's coming to an end, my friends. And wait until it's your turn to face the hardship, because it is not pretty and it's not funny. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to go before I get too carried away with the rant. Well, I don't see there's much else anyway to talk about. I'm going to watch the elections today, and I'm going to watch the war down in Jersey. It's almost like a football match, except there's no fun left in football matches anymore. So there we go. That's what it's all about. So let's just say cheerio, shall we? Until Friday. Yeah, Friday, tomorrow morning, when we can get back to normal and I can raise the issues, important issues that I believe need to be debated locally, and which I can't do today. Toodle pip. You haven't got rid of me quite yet, because I suddenly realised that perhaps the most important local news item, which was at the top of the programme this morning, is I didn't mention at the end. And that is congratulations to Stephen Catlin, who became last night Mayor of Lewes. Well done, Stephen. Stephen is part of the Mirador team, a lovely man and very straightforward, and knows, as I put it always, where the bodies are buried. He brings incisive comment and incisive views to what's happening in the councils here. And some of it ain't pretty. So well done, Stephen. And we look forward to a year of leadership from you that will make us proud to be Louisians again. Okay, that's it. Till then.